This is huge news, my friends. The Supreme Court has been formally asked to overturn same-sex marriage. Breaking news from this morning, Kim Davis, the former clerk who was jailed and fined and sued for refusing to issue same-sex marriage licenses, has filed an appeal and included a writ of cert to the Supreme Court saying Obergefell should be corrected. Now, here's where it gets crazy. 3 of the sitting justices right now had already voted no. We'll go over the record of how Obergefell passed some 10 years ago. But based on the current makeup of the Supreme Court, when you look at this breakdown, it seems very likely this will land 5-4 with the overturning of Obergefell, which means states, many of them, will no longer recognize gay marriage. It's going to get wild. I've got a map breakdown for you showing you every state that is going to ban it overnight if the Supreme Court says no. And based on the overturning of Roe v. Wade, this one seems like a no-brainer. Let me tell you, my friends, Roe v. Wade, this was a shocking overturn. Decades of precedent, settled law, they said, and it happened. Everybody said it couldn't happen. It's settled law. They were confirming Kavanaugh. Coney Barrett, the statements, I don't know which, I think it was Kavanaugh who may have said this, but the general sentiment was, look, Roe v. Wade is settled law. We're not going to flip this. And then they did. Now, Obergefell's only been 10 years. And the issue at play is that the conservatives, aside from being religious, these Supreme Court justices, it is that they are going to defer to the states. The argument has always been, whether or not a state chooses to recognize a marriage is for the state, not for the federal government. And the argument with Obergefell, I'm probably getting a little bit wrong, but the general idea was the federal government has to enforce equal protection under the law. So if you get a marriage license in one state, it should be recognized in another state. This is a weird way to allow for gay marriage. This is, you know what's, I'll tell you what's going to happen, man. SCOTUS is going to say this. We're overturning Obergefell. If you want gay marriage, pass it in the legislature. This is what the legislative branch is for. The courts are not supposed to be passing universal law for the country. It's going to get crazy. And you know what? It's funny because liberals were saying this is going to happen. And this is what happens when Donald Trump won one term back in 2016. He got these 3 justices and it was an earthquake. Check it out. ABC News reports Supreme Court formally asked to overturn landmark same-sex marriage ruling. They say 10 years after the Supreme Court extended marriage rights to same-sex couples nationwide, the justices this fall will consider for the first time whether to take up a case that explicitly asks them to overturn that decision. Kim Davis was jailed for 6 days in 2015 after refusing to issue marriage licenses to a gay couple on religious grounds. She's appealing a $100,000 jury verdict for emotional damages plus $260,000 for attorney fees. You know what, man? I think she's right. Now, there's an interesting constitutional argument on whether states must recognize gay marriage. And I'm not playing this stupid liberal game. I have no problem. I know conservatives post all the comments in the world. I mean it seriously, and tell me why you disagree. I love to hear it, but I disagree. I don't care if gay people get married. I really, really don't. I do care if they take it outside their house and start putting these weird books in schools for kids about adult activities. That's the line. That being said, there are 2 questions. Is marriage a fundamentally faith-based institution? And if it is, should it be at the governmental level at all? So churches shouldn't have to issue gay marriages, but this was the original argument. The state should have to issue a civil union right or something like this. The problem is marriage as an institution is essentially, it's governmentally institutionalized. And that means it's simultaneously both a religious faith-based structure and a legal structure. I'll put it like this. Here we go, Tim Pool, once again in the middle of the road, and I'll make the argument very, very simple. The federal government should not be, through the Supreme Court, issuing edict that changes the culture and the law. The Supreme Court is supposed to interpret the law at the highest level and make these determinations. Is this legal? Is this constitutional? What they did here, and I think it's plain to see, Gay marriage was not universally accepted culturally or legally, and the Supreme Court said, we deem it so. Now, there's arguments about segregation and the limits by which these laws are enacted. The 1964 Civil Rights Act. Thank you and have a nice day. That's my point. Congress passed a law and said, this is how it should be. And the Supreme Court said, guys, there's a law. Do it. Now you've got the Supreme Court with no federal law saying every state in the country must abide by an edict interpretation that we've created. No one who drafted the 14th Amendment was like, oh, also guys can marry guys. But I don't care if dudes get married. The problem is you can't legislate from the bench. So what needs to happen? Obergefell needs to be overturned. But liberals, spare me your whinging. I'm on your side. Just pass the laws the way it's supposed to be passed. Here's the issue. They'll never get it done. That's the problem. They'll never get it done. Look, man, I am not a person who believes that we should steal power and force people to bend to our wills. Never will be, never was. So as much as I might say, I got no problem with gay marriage. I have friends who are gay married, both men and women. And I'm just saying, and we all agree that many of these people you probably follow on social media, they don't want kids getting indoctrinated with any of this stuff. Keep it private and live your lives. Be happy. But these laws must be made by the legislature, not by the judiciary. And if liberals and Democrats keep pushing for a fascistic, there is no truth but power system, don't be surprised when Republicans play the same game. They say in a petition for writ of cert filed last month, Davis argues First Amendment protections for free exercise of religion immunizes her from personal liability for the denial of marriage licenses. More fundamentally, she claims the High Court's decision in Obergefell v. Hodges extended marriage rights for same-sex couples under the 14th Amendment was egregiously wrong. The mistake must be corrected, wrote Davis's attorney, Matthew Staver, in the petition. He calls Justice Anthony Kennedy's majority opinion in Obergefell legal fiction. The petition marks the first time since 2015 the court has been formally asked to overturn the landmark decision. Davis is seen as one of the only Americans currently with legal standing to bring a challenge to the precedent. This is crazy stuff. If there ever was a case of exceptional importance, the first individual in the Republic's history who was jailed for following her religious convictions regarding the historic definition of marriage, this should be it. I'm going to tell you, she should not have been jailed. She should not have been fined. She should not have been sued. Just fire her. I know a lot of people are saying, don't fire her, she did the right thing. No, my point is this. Supreme Court did issue their ruling. I'm not going to sit here and say the Supreme Court is wrong, so we shouldn't have any legal requirements as, employees of government or as taxpayers. No. Look. This is the system we live in, and we believe in rectifying through a legal process errors, which means we don't resist cops. Okay? Sometimes bad cops do bad things, but fighting a cop only makes it worse, especially bad ones who are now going to rough you up and lie about it. But if you get pulled over, a cop makes a mistake, whatever it might be, your victory comes from the courts, not from arguing with the cop. When the Supreme Court issues this ruling, then the issue is going to be that we fight it in the courts and we challenge it. And that being said, when Kim Davis says, I won't abide by the Supreme Court, they say, ma'am, here's your pink slip. Thank you for everything you've done thus far. You're free to leave. It's insane that instead of just firing her for not doing her job, they put her in jail. That's crazy. That's absolutely psychotic. Now let's roll, baby. Check this out. How did each sitting justice rule on Obergefell? 2015, 5-4. Sonia Sotomayor, yes. Kagan, yes. Dissent, Roberts, Alito, and Thomas. Now check this out. We have 4 justices who have not issued a ruling. Sotomayor, Kagan, Roberts, Alito, and Thomas were on the bench 10 years ago when Obergefell was ruled upon. And 3 of those said no. Of the 4 remaining, I think it's fairly obvious. Coney Barrett is a no. Gorsuch is a no. Kavanaugh's a no. Ketanji Brown Jackson's a yes. Heavens to Betsy, we may be looking at a 6-3 overturning of gay marriage. Maybe Coney Barrett will be like, no, we can't do this. It would break up families or whatever weird argument she might make because she's been. But on the issue of states' rights constitutionality, she's leaned a little bit in that direction. I know a lot of people are not super happy with her over the rulings she's issued recently because she's sided with the liberals. Even if she breaks, It is 5-4. I do not see how Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, I don't see how you are going to get, you need two of these conservative justices to break, two of them, maybe Coney Barrett, but I don't know, man. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see a reality in which, I honestly think it's going to be 6-3. I think the greater probability is 6-3 overturning. Maybe Coney Barrett breaks, but the idea that Coney Barrett and Gorsuch and Kavanaugh would flip and vote in favor, not just of gay marriage, because maybe it strikes at the core of their being, they're like, this is not marriage, but also at the constitutionality, the federal government to create law from the bench. They're going to argue, never has a law been passed federalizing gay marriage. It was a Supreme Court ruling. We ain't playing that game. That's how they tend to rule. That's Roe v. Wade. They said it is not the job of the federal government to create mandates changing the legal landscape of the country. The Supreme Court is supposed to review the law and question it against the constitutionality and then make a determination based on common law and precedent. That's not what we have here. Let's say a law gets passed. Somebody sues. They have standing. Goes to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court says this law was passed by Congress. It says you got to do jumping jacks every morning. The Constitution clearly does not give the authority of Congress to make you do jumping jacks. Therefore, this is unconstitutional. Overturned. You can't do it. The idea that the Supreme Court, imagine this, and I know people are going to say it's crazy, but this is a comparable reality. Excuse me. Imagine someone files some state, a bunch, like let's just say, who cares whether it's red or blue? Everyone is required to do jumping jacks every day. 10 jumping jacks in the morning when they wake up. And if we catch you, you go to jail. And then they file a lawsuit and they go to the Supreme Court and they say, every state now must do this. You'd be like, wait, what? Every state must require its citizens to do a thing? Now, obviously, you're going to say, Obergefell doesn't require its citizens to do a thing. It's that people who want to apply must be recognized by their state government. My point is, it's not a law. No one agreed for it to be that way. Check this out. Axios says, here's where same-sex marriage would be banned without Obergefell. States with marriage equality bans. Most of the country. Look at this. Alaska. Iowa is a statutory ban. And the most states, look at this, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania would ban it. West Virginia would ban it. Virginia has a constitutional ban. Tell me this. How is it that majority of the states have banned and opposed gay marriage, but this was imposed on the nation? I do not see how the Supreme Court does anything but overturn this. Now, I don't know how long it'll take. Maybe they say, I got to ask one of my buddies, my legal friends who actually track all this stuff, when the next, so end of June 2026. Holy crap, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be massive. This is going to be absolutely massive, and it's going to happen. Maybe 90% chance of likelihood. I could be wrong. Because nothing's absolute. But tell me this. Comment. I'm not kidding. You might say, Tim, Coney Barrett's going to side with the liberals. Okay, but Gorsuch and Kavanaugh are? That's going to give you 5-4. Roberts was already a no on this. You can say maybe Roberts flips and says it's settled law and marriages will be destroyed. Maybe. But then you still have a question of Coney Barrett. She might... Getting 5-4 is going to be a challenge. Getting 4-5 sounds nuts. 6-3 seems likely. Gay marriage is done, man. You tell me. I'm probably wrong. I'm going to say that. I am probably wrong. But I don't think I am. I don't know. It's hard to make these heavy predictions because this is massive and the left is going to lose their minds. I don't see how, I'll say it again. I don't see how you have even Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia. It's a blue state. Constitutional ban. How these states all said no to gay marriage and the Supreme Court forced it upon everyone of this country. I got no beef with gay married people or gay people who want to get married. I say, hey man, get married, do your thing. Here's the issue. You do not get to impose your will on everyone else. We're a democracy, as it were. Now, I get it. We're a democratic republic, constitutional republic with democratically elected representatives. And I know a lot of people are saying, Tim, we're not a democracy in any way. We are. We have referendums. Many states have a referendum process by which the majority of the population of the state can democratically pass laws. So the referendum process exists. We are, in fact, a democratic republic. It's a republic of states. Each state has a democratically elected representation and has mechanisms, not all, but many have mechanisms by which the people can, through referendum, change laws. So constitutional republic with democratic institutions. I'll concede you that one. Was this democracy? No, it was fascism. I'm going to leave it there. Communism, fine. Authoritarian rule over forcing progressive values. Smash the like buttons, my friend. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Stay tuned. We got more coming up. And for everybody who stayed this long, become a member of the Timcast Discord. Your membership really does help us out. It supports the work that we do. Without you, it wouldn't be possible. And we're working hard, man. It's really difficult. We're trying to create community-based membership programs. And we tried doing this with our events over the past few weeks. And the venues were it's been rough. We were trying to do 3 members-only events after the show as part of the event. Our members pulled it together and made it happen. Shout out to Romanation and everybody else who helped make this possible. But when we were trying to set it up, I'll put it this way. We got canceled, and only thanks to the public outcry did the shows come back. Setting up the after show became nigh impossible, but we'll figure it out, guys. Timcast.com, join the Discord server. Community is the resistance to AI and automation, and we need your support. I'll see you on the next segment.